I want to say something that is going to make some people uncomfortable, and I'm okay with that, because comfortable conversations have never changed anybody's life. There are millions of men right now who have been told they are depressed. They've been given a diagnosis, handed a prescription, sent to therapy, told to practice self-care and get more sleep and drink more water. And some of them are doing all of those things, and they still feel empty. They still feel heavy. They still wake up every morning feeling like something is fundamentally missing, but they cannot name what it is. And I want to speak directly to that man today, because I think the world gave you the wrong diagnosis. And when you have the wrong diagnosis, you will never find the right cure. What you are feeling is real. The heaviness is real. The emptiness is real. The numbness is real. But what if it isn't depression? What if what you're actually experiencing is something the medical system doesn't have a prescription for? What if you are spiritually empty? The difference between depression and spiritual emptiness. Now, before I go further, I want to be clear. Clinical depression is real. It is a genuine medical condition that affects millions of people, and I am not here to dismiss that or tell anyone to stop their medication. That is between you and your doctor. But I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about the man who has been checked out mentally and emotionally for years, not because his brain chemistry is broken, but because he has been living a life completely disconnected from his purpose, his faith, his brotherhood, and his true identity as a man. And the symptoms look almost identical. Low motivation, no joy, waking up and going through the motions, feeling like nothing really matters, struggling to connect with people, feeling hollow even when everything on the outside looks fine. But here is the critical difference. Depression is a condition that happens to you. Spiritual emptiness is a condition that builds in you, gradually, quietly, over years of making choices that move you further and further away from the man God designed you to be. Every time you numbed yourself instead of facing something real, the emptiness grew. Every time you chose the screen over the mission, the emptiness grew. Every time you suppressed your calling because it felt too big or too risky or too uncertain, the emptiness grew. Every time you disconnected from God, from brotherhood, from your own truth, the emptiness grew. And now you wake up and you don't recognize yourself anymore. You don't know what you want. You don't feel anything deeply. You've been going through the motions for so long that the motions feel like all there is. That is not depression. That is a man who has been starving his soul while feeding everything else. What actually creates spiritual emptiness? Let me show you exactly how this happens. Because it doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly. And most men don't notice until they're years deep. It starts with disconnection from purpose. Every man was created with a calling, something he was built to do, to build, to contribute to the world. When a man is connected to that calling, even when life is hard, even when things aren't working yet, there is a baseline energy, a reason to get up, a direction to move in. But most men never find that calling. Or they find it, and then talk themselves out of it because it feels impractical or impossible, or too far from where they currently are. So they take the safe job. They follow the expected path. They do what they're supposed to do, and they quietly die inside doing it. The second thing that creates spiritual emptiness is disconnection from God, and I don't care what your religious background is. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the deep, gut-level acknowledgement that you are not the author of your own story, that there is something greater than you guiding, shaping, and calling you forward. When a man loses that connection, when he starts trying to carry everything alone, control everything alone, figure everything out alone, he eventually collapses under the weight of it. Because men were not built to carry that weight alone. We were built in relationship with God, and when that relationship goes cold, everything else follows. Scripture says in Isaiah 40:31, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." That is the promise for the man who stays connected. But read the opposite. The man who doesn't wait on the Lord, the man who disconnects from that source of strength. He grows weary, he faints, he runs out, not because life is too hard, but because he's been trying to run on his own fuel instead of God's. The third thing is disconnection from brotherhood. We talked about this before. Men are not built to operate alone. We were designed for tribe, for community, for other men who speak truth into our lives, challenge us, hold us accountable, and remind us of who we are when we forget. But the modern man is isolated. He has hundreds of followers and 0 brothers. He has acquaintances, but nobody who really knows him. Nobody he can call at 2 a.m. Nobody who will tell him the truth when he's going wrong. And in that isolation, the lies he tells himself about who he is go completely unchallenged. The book of Enoch speaks of the importance of men walking in alignment with God, with their brothers, with their calling. It speaks of what happens to men who walk alone, disconnected from truth, disconnected from their divine purpose. They lose their way, not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, one compromise at a time, until they look up and don't recognize where they are or who they've become. The fourth thing is disconnection from identity. Who are you? Not your job, not your relationship status, not your income, not your reputation. Who are you at the core? What do you believe? What do you stand for? What kind of man are you becoming? Most men cannot answer those questions because they've spent their entire lives being defined by external things, by what they produce, what they own, what people think of them. And when those external things don't satisfy, they have nothing to fall back on. No foundation, no core. A man without a solid identity is a man. The world can push in any direction it wants, and the world will push him toward comfort, toward consumption, toward distraction, because that's what makes the world money. Not toward purpose, not toward greatness, not toward God. Why the world's solution doesn't work. Here is why the standard prescription for what you're feeling doesn't work. The world says you're depressed. Take this pill. Go to therapy. Practice mindfulness. Do some journaling. Get some sunlight. And maybe some of those things help on the surface. Maybe they take the edge off. Maybe they make it manageable. But they don't fill the void. Because the void isn't a chemical imbalance. The void is a God-shaped hole that nothing else was ever designed to fill. You've tried to fill it with women. It didn't work. You've tried to fill it with achievement. It didn't work. You've tried to fill it with money, with status, with substances, with screens, with distraction after distraction. And every time, the emptiness comes back, sometimes louder than before, because you were not created to be managed. You were created to be transformed. And transformation doesn't come from a prescription. It comes from reconnection. Reconnection with God, reconnection with purpose, reconnection with brotherhood, reconnection with your true identity as a man. That is the cure the world doesn't sell, because you can't put it in a bottle. You can't package it and market it. It requires something the world doesn't profit from. Your surrender to something greater than yourself. How you actually fill the void. So what do you do? If spiritual emptiness is the diagnosis, what is the actual treatment? The first step is the hardest one. You have to stop running. Most men fill every quiet moment with noise because the quiet is where the emptiness lives. The phone, the TV, the music, anything to avoid sitting alone with the truth of where you actually are. But the truth is where the healing begins. You have to be willing to sit in the quiet and ask yourself the real questions. Not just what's wrong with me, but what am I disconnected from? What have I been running from? What is God trying to say to me in the silence that I keep drowning out with noise? The second step is to reconnect with your calling. Not your career, your calling. The thing that was placed in you before the world told you who to be. It might be creating something, building something, teaching something, leading something. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be profitable yet. It just has to be real. It just has to be yours. Start moving toward it, even one step. Because a man moving toward his calling, even slowly, is a man whose soul starts to come back online. The third step is to rebuild your relationship with God, not religion, relationship. Talk to him, be honest with him. Tell him you're empty. Tell him you're lost. Tell him you don't know who you are anymore. He already knows. He's been waiting for you to admit it. Because the moment you stop pretending, you have it all figured out is the moment he can actually start working in your life. The fourth step is to find your brothers, real ones, men who are building something, men who are doing the work, men who will call you out when you're wrong and stand with you when you're struggling, because you cannot fill a spiritual void alone. You were never meant to. And the fifth step, and this is everything, is to choose transformation over management. Stop looking for ways to cope with the emptiness and start pursuing the things that eliminate it. Purpose eliminates emptiness. Brotherhood eliminates isolation. God eliminates the void. These are not motivational statements. These are the actual mechanics of how a man comes back to life. The world gave you a diagnosis and a prescription and sent you on your way. But the prescription doesn't work because the diagnosis was wrong. You are not broken. You are not beyond help. You are not condemned to feel this way for the rest of your life. You are a man who has been running on empty for too long. A man who has been disconnected from the very things that were designed to make him come alive. A man whose soul has been starving while everything else got fed. But starvation is not death, and empty is not the end. The moment you turn back toward God, toward purpose, toward brotherhood, toward your true identity, the filling begins. Not all at once, but it begins. And a man who has been empty and found his way back to full, that man is unstoppable because he knows the difference. He knows what it cost him to be empty, and he will never go back. Walk with God while you work for the crown. When he crowns you king, tell the world of the truth you found. That's king-level mindset. Kings don't beg. Kings don't bow. Kings build.